Here we are again. So welcome to everybody. Thanks for coming. I hope you're all surviving okay, not suffering too much. This weekend we have a couple of days to sit together. What luck. We're very fortunate that we can do that. And I'd like to speak this weekend just a little bit about a Zen text that's very important in our tradition, the PlatformSutra. The way that we practice, the spirit of our way of practice mostly comes from Suzuki Roshi, who came from Japan, inheriting a whole way of life of Japanese Buddhism, which came from Chinese Buddhism. And he had a very simple Zen spirit, which he often referred to as beginner's mind. A mind that is willing just to be present with whatever is there, not to judge it or rearrange it, or just to be with it, just to be willing to fully be present with what's there, to be surprised, to be curious, to be interested, to feel whatever there is there to be felt. And by doing that, to find awakening, not at special times, but on every occasion, at every moment of our lives. That, in a nutshell, was Suzuki Roshi's approach to Dharma. And his approach was based on the approach to Dharma of Dogen Zenji, who founded our school in Japan. And his way of practice was really a radical rereading of the Song Dynasty Chinese Zen tradition. A rereading that emphasized the all-inclusiveness and the radical non-duality of practice. That, in other words, that there's nowhere we need to get to, nothing we need to develop that we don't already have. And all we need to do is just let go and turn around wherever we are and appreciate our real nature as human beings, that it's there already. All we need to do is see it. And that Song Dynasty Chan Buddhism that Dogen pushed off from really sources from this text that I want to talk to you about this weekend, the PlatformSutra, which is the text that was spoken by the sixth Zen ancestor, Huineng. And so this is his text, the PlatformSutra. He's the one speaking. Unusual, most of the sutras are spoken by the Buddha, so this is very elevated that this Chinese ancestor, his words are elevated to the status of sutra. So the structure of this text, I was reading it because Red Pine, who's a contemporary translator from around here, he lives in Washington State, U.S., he recently did a retranslation of the PlatformSutra, and whenever, scriptures are always retranslated in every generation, and every retranslation is a chance for us to look at the scripture again and think over again, what does it mean, and how do we appreciate it for each successive generation. So, although PlatformSutra is something we've studied before, this new translation gives us a new chance to think again. What is it saying? So the structure of the text is kind of interesting, the way it's set up. It's actually the sixth ancestor, Huineng, is speaking this text in the middle of an ordination ceremony. He's actually doing a ceremony, giving the precepts to lay followers. And he in the middle of that ceremony, he starts telling the story of his life. So the first part of the sutra is a flashback of the story of his life, told in this ordination ceremony. Then the next part is the ordination ceremony itself, where he actually gives the precepts to these assembled followers, and he, as he's doing this, he's explaining the ceremony, and then after he's finished, he gives a little talk explaining the teachings. So that's the second part, is the actual ceremony and its attendant Dharma talk. And then the third part, that ends, and then the third part is different encounters that he has with his disciples over the course of his lifetime. And then at the end, his last days and his death. So that's the narrative flow of the sutra. So whenever you read this sutra, and you find it in Red Pine's translation as well, there's a long, complicated story that I won't go into about why the controversies around the different versions of the sutra, many different versions, and all the sociology and the politics of the period and the history of the Zen school, blah, blah, et cetera, all very important stuff, but nothing that I want to talk about this weekend. So let's put all that aside and pretend that this is a coherent, reasonable text in the sky it doesn't come out of anywhere. It's just we can read it and learn from it. And the main point that the sixth ancestor makes over and over and over again is that the spirit of practice, the spirit of Zen practice, the spirit of his practice is the spirit of simplicity and directness. You don't need to do a whole lot of complicated things. You don't need to learn a whole lot of stuff. It's not necessary to know Chinese and Sanskrit and many terminologies. It's all very, very simple and very direct. And this simplicity and directness that he's all the time speaking about in a very radical way is expressed in the little story of his life that he tells at the beginning of the sutra. And I'm not going to tell you the whole thing because probably most of you know it already, but the main point is that he was a very simple person. He was an illiterate guy who was a woodcutter, taking care of his widowed mother, and had no pretensions to be a spiritual seeker at all. Never, from the story anyway, never thought about these things. But one day he was in the street and he heard somebody reciting the Diamond Sutra. Wouldn't it be great if we had that? You'd be walking down the street, and instead of seeing like a big ad for cigarettes or something, or a person with a sandwich board saying, buy this or get that, there would be somebody there reciting a sutra. Would that be great? Yeah. That would really be nice. You could do that, actually. Anybody, it's a free country. I don't think it's illegal to stand on a street corner and recite a sutra. So I recommend that you do that. One time I did that in Green Gulch. I stood on the corner of the street in Green Gulch and recited a sutra all day long. Anyway, that's what happened. There was somebody, I guess people did that in those days, reciting a sutra. And he heard this. And when he heard the line, it was the Diamond Sutra, which is also a wonderful text. That was the text that I quoted to you last night from the beginning. He heard somebody reading that sutra, and he heard the line that said, "You should give rise to a thought unsupported by anything, unsupported by sight objects, by sound, taste, touch, or mental objects, a thought that just arises spontaneously. You should give rise to a thought like that." And that thought is the thought that the Diamond Sutra mentions, as I quoted last night, the thought of wanting to benefit others, that comes from nowhere. In other words, not because the Bible says, or I know would be a good person if I did that, but just this spirit that all of a sudden dawns on you, wow, I just love everybody and I want to do things that would be helpful and beneficial because it's such a wonderful world and everybody in it is so great. That's what I want to do. So that thought that just comes out of the middle of nowhere into your heart, you should welcome such a thought. So he hears this line being quoted from the Diamond Sutra on the street corner, and he says, that's it. In other words, at that moment, that thought comes into him when he hears those words, and he says, that's it, I'm going to go. And he says, where did you learn about this? And the person says, over there, such and so. I'm going. So he goes there to the monastery. And they say, well, who are you and what are you doing here? He says, well, I want to practice Zen. And they say, well, we don't have any room for you, but you could go into the pantry there, and we do need somebody to pound rice for the monks' meals. So, I'll do it. So he doesn't even get to meditate. He's in the rice pounding room, pounding rice. I don't know how they did that exactly, but somehow. I have the idea that he walked around in a circle with some kind of a gadget that would grind the rice, but I don't know. Pretty boring work, but that's what he did. And he was there for quite a while. And at that time, the abbot of the monastery decided that he wanted to retire. So he wanted to find out who would be the most worthy successor. So he declared a poetry contest. He said, everybody should write a poem, short poem, expressing their understanding of the teaching, and let's see who really understands. So this threw everybody into consternation. I mean, it would be a strange thing if I said, okay, everybody here write a poem and let's see who understands. And I left, and everybody was sitting here. It would be, you could imagine, it would be a strange thing. So they thought it over, and all the monks said to each other, well, the head monk obviously is the one who understands, so we won't even bother writing a poem. We'll just let the head monk write a poem, and because the head monk, there's an ecclesiastical hierarchy, and so naturally, so he's just saying this, write a poem, but he really means that the head monk should write a poem, and the head monk will become the abbot. So nobody wrote a poem but the head monk. He wrote a poem, and he was very nervous about it, according to the sutra, because he wasn't sure that he understood very well. But he thought, well, I have to do it. So he wrote a little poem, and he tacked it up on the wall. The poem says, more or less in Red Pine's translation, and it's in the sutra, the body is a Bodhi tree, meaning the tree that the Buddha sat under, the tree of awakening. The body is a Bodhi tree. The mind is like a tall mirror. Always keep the mirror clean. Don't let it gather dust. So that was his poem. And he put that up on the wall, and later on, Huineng was wandering around in the hallway, and he saw this poem up there, and he said to somebody, would you read that to me? What is that? Because he couldn't read. And so they read it to him, and he said, that doesn't sound right. I'm gonna write a poem. And would you write this down for me? And so he recited this poem, and they wrote it down and tacked that up on the wall. And his poem said, Bodhi doesn't have any trees, and the mirror doesn't have a stand. Our Buddha nature is already pure. There's no need to remove any dust. So that we put that poem on. So when the abbot came and saw these two poems on the wall, he said, the first poem is really good. This is wonderful. The second poem is not so good. But in the middle of the night, he called Huineng to him and he said, actually, your poem is the best. But I don't want to say anything about it because everybody will freak out and they'll think, who's this rice pounder coming here writing the best poem? And it's very inconvenient to the hierarchy. And we can't make trouble. So I'm telling you now that, you have the best understanding, and you are my true successor, and go away. Find your own way, because if you hang around here, everybody's going to get mad and you're going to have a lot of trouble. So he sent him away, and he left. So that's more or less the story of the sixth ancestor. Now, up to this point, pretty much we could say that in all of Buddhism, the idea was always wipe the mirror clean. Recognize the body as awakening itself, recognize the mind as a mirror, and work hard in your practice to keep the mirror clean. Make painstaking effort to free the mind from defilements, to polish awakening. It takes a long time, it's hard work, lots of meditation, but you can do it. That's, and we all, I think we all sort of think that way, right? This is how we think. The mind is impure, we're confused, we're messed up, we're not that happy, we're not so enlightened. We're going to get enlightened. How are we going to do it? By painstaking effort over time. We're going to get there. So we all think this way, and this is how it was always presented in Buddhism. But in this story, you have this whole idea overthrown by a simple illiterate person who sees directly that it's not like that. All we have to do is recognize who we are, who we've always been. See our true self. As I said last night, quoting the Diamond Sutra, the truth is that we are all blessed to be alive in human form, is to receive enormous blessings of consciousness, awareness, of language, of perception, of a heart that's capable of love, however much it's occluded in us. The love is there. So we have tremendous blessings, and we are entrusted by the Buddha as part of our nature to live in this world with full trust and happiness. So this is what we are. We don't have to produce this in ourselves. We just have to look in ourselves and see this. All we have to do is recognize our true self. So, in this sutra, this little legend, a story about the sixth ancestor kind of expresses this. And it's so direct and so simple. You don't have to fix yourself. You don't have to do a whole lot of stuff. You don't have to even be good, better, and best. All you have to do is wake up from your long sleep and just remember, maybe you've had the experience of literally doing that, waking up from a sleep where you had a troubled dream, which seems so real, and you wake up and you realize, that's not going on at all. Here I am. So that's what we have to do, just wake up from a dream and recognize who we are and what we are. And that spirit of the simplicity and directness is the great spirit of Zen and the spirit of the sixth ancestor. So I thought I would quote some little parts of the sutra and share with you some of his words. This is in the middle of the ritual that I told you about. First, he asks everybody in the assembly to take refuge in the three bodies of Buddha. And then he says, now let's make the four great vows. And he says, good friends, recite after me. And these are the vows that we chant too. We're going to chant them right after I'm done talking. So he's having them chant these in this ritual. So here's the way that the vows are translated here. I vow to save all beings, no matter how numberless. I vow to end all afflictions, no matter how countless. I vow to master all teachings, no matter how limitless. And I vow to attain Buddhahood, no matter how transcendent. And then he says, recite this 3 times. And they do. Good friends, as for I vow to save all beings, no matter how numberless, it isn't me or you who's going to do that saving. Good friends, every being you can think of saves themselves with their own nature, in their own bodies. So that's why it's not a burden to take this vow to save others, because we know that others save themselves by their own nature. What does it mean, they save themselves with their own nature? The wrong views and afflictions, the ignorance and delusions in their own material bodies already possess the nature of original enlightenment. So, this is kind of astonishing, really. The wrong views and the afflictions themselves already possess the nature of original enlightenment. In other words, we think, oh my God, I'm so burdened by all this, I want to get rid of this. I'm hoping that practice will help me get rid of all this. Not knowing that right in the middle of these very afflictions, our nature is right there, and we need to honor our afflictions, turn toward them, express them and admit them and see them for what they are. Then we'll find our original nature right there. We don't need to get rid of them or demonize these afflictions or think that they're bad or we're bad for having them. We need to turn toward them in this radical, simple and direct way. Face them. Experience them. And then we'll see that they possess the nature of our original enlightenment. It is just this nature of original enlightenment that saves them with right views. So once you see the nature of your afflictions, then right views, truth, arises within you. Once they realize the wisdom of right views, they dispel their ignorance and delusion, and each being saves themselves. The false are saved with truth, the deluded are saved with awareness, the ignorant are saved with wisdom, the bad are saved with goodness, and the afflicted are saved with enlightenment. And then you are truly saved. As for I vow to end all afflictions, no matter how countless, this means to get rid of the delusions of your own mind. And I vow to master all teachings, no matter how limitless, means to study the true unexcelled Dharma. And I vow to attain Buddhahood, no matter how transcendent, means always to practice with humility. To respect all beings, to avoid attachments, to give rise to wisdom from your own awareness, and to put an end to delusions. It is through self-realization that Buddhahood is attained. This is the power of making vows. So it's surprising that his comment on the line, I vow to attain Buddhahood, no matter how transcendent, is to practice with humility. It's a kind of counterintuitive. You wouldn't think that attaining transcendent Buddhahood would mean to practice with humility. But when you know who you are, then you know who others are. And when you know who you are and who others are, then you really are humble. And you are concerned for others. You're interested in others. You don't see yourself as separate or different or above or below others, but always with a respectful relation. And this is real humility, to be interested in others, aware of others, and to recognize your connection with others, neither above nor below them. That's true humility. That's knowing yourself. And then he ends with, this is the power of making vows. These 4 great vows. And the power of vowing is essential in our practice. In other words, it's not about attaining a state of mind. We're not trying to attain a state of mind or a spiritual state or a state of being. We're trying to strengthen our resolve and our commitment to continuing the path, continuing the practice, continuing the cultivation, always to try to understand more, always to deepen in our awareness, to be more aware all the time. This is a spirit of vowing. I will keep going. So it's not about what we're going to get or how we're going to achieve this or that or fix this or that. It's about cultivating this spirit of, no matter how discouraged or upset or difficult things may be, I'm cultivating this spirit to go on, practicing awareness, to go on practicing humility, to go on trying to see on every occasion who I really am, even in my misery, even in my trouble, even in this world. So much craziness. I'm going to find my real self. I'm going to find my real connection to others. That's my vow. And I have to make that vow every day, and I have to strengthen that vow, and I have to cultivate that vow. So that's how he presents the 4 vows that we're going to chant in a little while. Then the next thing in the ritual is he says, actually right after the vows there's the practice of repentance, which we also do in our rituals. These are all things that we do in our rituals. It's very similar. This ritual of precept receiving is very similar to the ritual that we currently do for receiving precepts. And our ritual and also his involves next repenting, chanting the verse of repentance, of avowal of karma. And then after that, he says, good friends, now that we have finished with repentance, I will transmit to you the formless precepts of the Triple Refuge. And the Master said, good friends, we take refuge in enlightenment and the best of 2-legged creatures. This does not mean a chicken. This means the Buddha is the best of 2-legged creatures. So in other words, that's a name for the Buddha. So we take refuge in enlightenment and the Buddha. We take refuge in truth and the best of what transcends desire. We take refuge in purity and the best of congregations. So this is his way of saying Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Buddha meaning enlightenment and the Buddha. Dharma meaning the truth and what goes beyond desire. And Sangha meaning purity and the community of people who are committed to practicing that purity. And then he gives a little commentary on this Triple Refuge. This is what we chant at night. We chant in Pali. Last night in Pali we chanted this Triple Refuge. And it's also chanted in precept ceremonies, taking refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. So he says, beginning today, call the Buddha your teacher. Never again take refuge in the mistaken teachings of other paths. And I hope he means this in the broadest possible way. In other words, not that everybody should be a Buddhist immediately, but rather that this kind of truth that the Buddha represents beyond our selfishness. Take refuge in that. And may you experience the compassion of your own three treasures. Your own three treasures. Good friends, I urge you all to take refuge in the three treasures of your own nature, wherein Buddha means enlightenment, Dharma means truth, and Sangha means purity. So this is what, we're not taking refuge, in other words, in an external doctrine of Buddhism, an external person called the Buddha who lived long ago, a community of people that we're going to join up with. We're taking refuge in enlightenment, truth, and purity, all aspects of our own nature, of our own heart. Take refuge in the enlightenment of your own minds. Those whose delusions do not arise, who have few desires and who know contentment, who are free from wealth and sex, they are called the Buddha, the best of two-legged creatures. And I think that we can understand this as meaning not caught by desire, delusion, wealth, and sex. Because for monastics who might actually forbear, live an intentional life of poverty or celibacy, this may literally be the case, but for lay people like us, it's not a matter of abandoning desire, abandoning wealth, it's a matter of not being caught by it, of holding it without attachment. So that's how we, contemporary practitioners, would interpret that. But the point he's making here is that it's not about taking refuge in the Buddha over there. It's taking refuge in your own capacity for enlightenment. That's what we mean by Buddha. When we say Buddha, when we make a prostration to Buddha, we're making a prostration to that capacity for awakening to our true self that's within us. And in a way, this was a radical thing for him to say in those days, because I think many practitioners did understand the Buddha as being outside themselves. Take refuge in the truth, the Dharma, the truth of your own minds. When your thoughts are free from delusion, you are therefore free from attachment, and freedom from attachment is called the best of what transcends desire. So we can enjoy the things of our life. If we have wealth, it's a wonderful thing. We should enjoy it and be generous, because it's, you can really have a great practice of generosity if you have wealth. Also, if you don't, but especially if you have wealth, you can really be lavish in your generosity. You can really have a lot of fun giving things and taking care of people and so on. But here the idea is to be free from attachment to that. Take refuge in the purity of your own minds. No matter how many afflictions and delusions are present in your nature, because your nature remains of its essence uncorrupted, this is called the Sangha. So he radically reinterprets Sangha to mean the purity of your own nature, even though there may be many defilements present in your nature. To have confidence and faith in your ultimate and original purity. This is called taking refuge in the congregation, taking refuge in the Sangha. Ordinary people don't understand this, he says. Day after day, they recite the precepts of the Triple Refuge. But when they say they take refuge in the Buddha, where is the Buddha? If they don't see the Buddha, they aren't taking refuge in anything. And if they aren't taking refuge in anything, their words are false. Good friends, each of you should examine this for yourselves. Don't misdirect your attention. The sutras only say to take refuge in the Buddha of yourselves. They don't say to take refuge in some other Buddha. If you don't take refuge in your own nature, there's no other place of refuge. So, we have to think for a minute about what he's saying here. Because I think he's saying that our own nature is not limited, to the personality we think we are, the body we think we have, and the life that we think is our life. When we limit ourselves to our conventional sense of who we are and what our lives are, we so limit ourselves that we consign ourselves to a life of suffering. When he says take refuge in your own nature, he's not talking about my nature as opposed to your nature. He's talking about this limitless human gift that we all are, beyond our limitations and beyond our individuality. So my nature isn't exactly something that I possess. My nature is something that opens me infinitely. It's not outside me, but it's also not exactly inside me in the sense that it's enclosed within me and I possess it. So I often, speak about our meditation practice as just returning to the feeling of being alive, which is really what we're doing. When we're sitting on our cushion, we're just saying, I want to feel life. I want to feel what it feels like to be embodied. I want to feel what it feels like to be breathing. Feel what it feels like for thought arising and passing away. Feelings and sensations arising and passing away, as any living organism would feel. I'm returning beyond my limitations, beyond my needs and desires and dissatisfactions and joys and sorrows, to this life that's flowing through me and is everywhere I look. When we return to that, we are taking refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Inside us, outside us, all around us, fully connected in every way. And when we're in that place of refuge, it is a place of refuge. It's our home, and it's our absolute security. Nothing can harm us there. Even if our life is taken from us, we're not harmed. Because there, that flow of life, goes on. And when we take refuge in that, we're really beyond harm, beyond all pain, even when there's pain, even when there's suffering, even when there's difficulty. It doesn't really matter so much. And sometimes, as we all have found, I'm sure, more than once in our lives, our very personal pain can bring us to that understanding. And we can be grateful for it in some funny way. So it's a beautiful and radical recontextualization, reinterpretation of the triple treasure. So he does that in the ritual. Now I want to quote a little part from something that he says before the ritual began. And this is something he says about meditation, which I think is very important in a sort of Zen approach to meditation, and how Zen meditation is different. The understanding of meditation is different in Zen. And it begins here with this famous passage by the sixth ancestor. He says, "Good friends, this Dharma teaching of mine is based on meditation and wisdom. But don't make the mistake of thinking that meditation and wisdom are separate. Meditation and wisdom are of one essence and not two. Meditation is the body of wisdom, and wisdom is the function of meditation. Wherever you find wisdom, you find meditation. And wherever you find meditation, you find wisdom. So in essence, he's redefining these two terms in terms of each other. It's really a radical redefinition. Good friends, this means that meditation and wisdom are the same. Fellow students of the way, be careful. Don't think that meditation comes first and then gives rise to wisdom. Or that wisdom comes first and then gives rise to meditation, or that meditation and wisdom are separate. For those who hold such views, the Dharma is dualistic. And there's something to achieve that has not yet been achieved. There's a means to achieve it. We achieve wisdom. Meditation is the means to achieve it. And he says, no. If the mouth speaks of goodness, but the mind doesn't think of goodness, meditation and wisdom aren't the same. But if goodness pervades both the mouth and the mind, if what is external and internal are alike, then meditation and wisdom are the same. So, this is actually a great innovation in Buddhist thought, because up to now, traditional Buddhism always said, well, there's a path. We're trying to get from samsara, our world of confusion, to nirvana, peace, and it's a journey to go from one place to another, and we need a path, and the path includes first ethical conduct, morality, bringing some discipline and peacefulness to our lives, and then cultivation and meditation, and then wisdom and insight, and then we get to nirvana. And he's saying, no, nirvana and samsara are the same place, and the path all collapses into one thing. Meditation and wisdom are the same thing. He doesn't say it here, but morality is also the same thing. And that one thing is just completely being present, openly with what is. It's just like Suzuki Roshi's beginner's mind. It's also just like the Diamond Sutra passage I quoted to you last night, when the Buddha sits down and has mindfulness with what's in front of him, fully aware, fully taking in, being with, accepting, open to whatever is in front of him. In that moment, the whole of the path is there. The journey from samsara to nirvana is completed in that very moment of willingness to live. In other words, willingness to live this moment of our lives, whatever it is. That is nirvana and samsara at once. That is the whole of the path at once, complete in that moment. Just being willing to accept the full catastrophe of being alive with all of its dimensions, without pushing anything away, trying to get something out of it, but just living it. What is external and internal are alike, he says. There's no inside of me and outside of me. There's no gaps in time and space. There's nobody, out there trying to beat me up or get the best of me. And I'm not trying to beat anybody up or get the best of them. There's just life arising, complete, in this moment, and passing away, and rising, complete, in the next moment, and passing away, moment after moment after moment of profound, fully connected, undefinable, mysterious, powerful reality coming and going on each occasion. And what's that? That's meditation. That's wisdom. That's samsara. That's nirvana. That's the whole of the path, all in one moment. So when we practice meditation in Zen, we're not sitting to cultivate peace or wisdom or anything in particular. We're sitting to express our true life, to manifest our true life. And sitting isn't just sitting. Sitting is the constant activity of our wisdom being manifested in our daily lives. So there's not such a big difference between a retreat and a not retreat. All the time we're in the same. I mean, the consciousness that we find on our cushion, is it different in our daily life? Well, the surface might look different, but is the depth of consciousness any different? No. Consciousness is nirvana. So we don't understand meditation as being something radically different. So in Zen we often say the practice is just to do what we're doing, just to do the schedule, whatever our schedule is. If it's in a retreat, it's one kind of a schedule. If it's not a retreat, it's another kind of a schedule. There's always some kind of a schedule, there's always some kind of activity going on to give ourselves to that activity. That's our practice. When it's time to do meditation, when the bell rings, we go. When the bell rings and it's over, we forget about it. When this retreat is over, we'll all go about our business and we'll forget about it. And we'll turn to the task at hand, not longing for the meditation or thinking that was so great, can't we do that again? But just whatever comes next, that's what we do. That's our practice. That's our meditation. And there's no sense in our way of practice that meditation is better, purer, higher than non-meditation. It's just, now it's time for meditation, so that's what we do. There's no real difference between meditation and non-meditation. So, of course, we might think, oh, well, that's great, I saved myself a lot of trouble, I don't need to meditate then. And a lot of people have interpreted it that way, But that's not what he's saying. He's saying, that's true. When you're not meditating, you don't need to meditate. That's right. But when it's time to meditate, you do need to meditate then, because that's what it's time to do then. We need both modes of being. So, if you're a practitioner and the bell rings, you go to meditation. Just because, well, that's what you do. And when the bell rings and you stop meditation, then you forget about it, because that's what it's time for. And so, if you belong to a sangha, you go to the weekly meeting or you go to the retreat in the same spirit. Oh, the bell rang. In other words, the retreat is happening, so I go. And it's over, and it's over. Because all these things are a part of our lives. Maybe our contemporary life is a little bit out of balance. If you ever watch animals, they're very busy. Animals have very busy lives. They do. Because it's a full-time job, getting your food and building a nest and so on, having babies, big job. But animals will often stop in the middle of things and just stand there. Do you ever notice that? Just stand there. Not do anything. Because that's part of what life needs. Life needs to go and it needs to stop. So we need to go and stop. We need to meditate and not meditate. And we need to find the rhythm for that. And in our world, human world now, we're forgetting about stopping. We actually forgot. Even though every religion in the world always has that part in it. We decided we don't need any religion, and we're busy anyway, and we're going 100 miles an hour. It's not good for us. We're getting sick. We're getting slightly crazy. We're forgetting that we live on a planet that needs care. We forget that we're living among others who need care. We don't have time for each other. We're too busy. It's no good. We need to learn just a normal human rhythm. So, when it's time to stop, we stop. When it's time to go, we go. We understand stopping is going and going is stopping. So a lot of us sit every day. I'm a big fan of this. I recommend this to everybody. It's so easy to do. Just get up in the morning and sit. Doesn't have to be a real long time. Makes a big difference in how there's so much goes on in one day. Joyce could write a novel about one day in the life of a guy in Dublin. 800 pages long. But it could have been 8,000 pages. You could write an 8,000-page novel about what happens to you in one day. All that you feel, all that arises in you, which is completely undigested and unprocessed. And then you go do the next day. And at night, there's more going on when you're sleeping. So when we sit down in meditation, we have a chance to just rest with all that we've felt and all that we've been, in one day, and prepare for the next day. And that's why we need to come to retreats, even though it's very boring and repetitive. Maybe some of you thinks this is exciting and fun and challenging. But after you do it for 15, 20, 30 years, it's pretty much the same thing. All kind of stuff is going on in your mind, but you've seen it all before. There it is again. Whoops. And yet we have to do this. Very few people say, I'm not going to sleep tonight because I went to sleep last night. And it's really boring, and I'm not doing it. You don't hear people say that, Although it's true. People go to sleep pretty much every night, and they don't question it, even though it is a little bit. Think of all that. I'm sure somebody's working on this. Some large company is trying to figure out, how can we do without sleep? Think of all that lost productivity. If people could work like the chickens in the chicken farms, who work 24 hours a day. Why can't we get people to do this? But so far, we're not thinking of that because we take for granted that we would sleep at night and eat food every day. But also, we need to take care of our spiritual lives every day too. And retreats are important for that. To process, who we are and what we've been feeling and what's been going on with us. To stop and just be there with what's inside of us. But not with an attitude of getting something out of it or feeling like we need more retreats. I have a friend, who's a meditation teacher, and I teach with him all the time, and I've been telling him for years, and he always thinks he needs more retreats, longer retreats. And I keep saying, well, I don't think that's right, But he's convinced that if only he could sit more retreats, longer retreats, everything would be better. He would be happier. So I keep wondering when he's going to come to the end of that. And now he's organizing a 1-month retreat and a 2-month retreat and all this. I don't think we need to do that. We just need to, when the bell rings, just go. And when the bell rings, stop. We don't need more meditation. We also don't need less meditation. We just need to follow the rhythm of our natural lives. So this is, I think, an unusual way of looking at meditation, because I think in most traditions, including Buddhist traditions, there is a sense that, that's where my friend gets it from. from Buddhist meditation, where they think longer retreats are better, you go deeper in all this. And I'm always thinking, what could be deeper than right now? What's deeper than this? One more passage, and then I'll stop. This is also a very famous saying of the sixth ancestor. He talks about one practice samadhi, or one practice meditation. He says, this means at all times, whether walking, standing, sitting, or lying down, always practicing with a straightforward mind. So this saying, straightforward mind. So this is something too. I recommend that you meditate on this. Straightforward mind. And I think, one sees that almost all of our suffering comes from a mind that's not straightforward. Comes from a mind that's complicated, full of desire and aversion, full of judgment, full of need. If you can just shed all of that and let your mind be direct and honest and sincere, just simple, I think you find that there's so much peace in that. So, all of this stuff that you hear about in Zen of sudden enlightenment and this and that, it really is this straightforward mind. It's not a matter of sudden breakthrough or something like that. It's a matter of returning to the bare simplicity of the mind. So, I am impressed with how simple this all is, how simple our practice is. It's not easy because, you see that just to be straightforward and simple somehow takes effort because we're always trying to elaborate everything, But it isn't something complicated or something that we can't do, something that only sages can do. This is what's so radical about the Zen approach to Buddhism. You don't have to be a monastic. You don't have to take 1,000 precepts. You don't have to practice strong discipline or austerities or study major teachings all the time. You just have to directly simplify your life and look and see in this moment what's there, whatever it is. Give yourself to it. So the purpose of the sixth ancestor's sutra is not to convince you of anything or tell you anything. It's really to encourage you and give you the confidence that what you need for your ultimate well-being, you already have. And that even though you don't feel it, it's one breath away. It's right there. All you have to do is just in one moment, turn toward it. Let go of all the complexities of your attachment and desire and just be with yourself, whatever it is. And that's all it takes. So I also want to encourage you in the same way Please let's practice together. Let's help each other out here, encourage each other to continue this very simple and direct path. Nothing fancy here at all. To be humble and to continue. So, thank you. May our intention